Have you ever wanted a shortcut to being truly well-informed?
Hmm.
To really peel back the layers of a complex idea without getting completely lost in all the dense details?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're in precisely the right place. Today, we're taking a deep dive, not just into a story, really, but into a kind of philosophical playground.
A battlefield almost.
Yeah, a battlefield, a text that challenges pretty ruthlessly, actually, everything we think we know about beauty, about influence, and maybe even the very nature of our souls.
And our source material for this is, well, it's a fascinating anthology. We're looking specifically at some early excerpts from Oscar Wilde's Whispers of the Heart, an anthology of love's echoes.
Okay.
And right from the very first line, it's this provocative, almost audacious statement by Wilde himself. This text, it doesn't just invite you in.
Right.
It throws you in. It immediately immerses you in this world where art, morality, identity, they're constantly being put to the test. And what's really fascinating here, I think, is how these initial chapters, they just meticulously lay the groundwork for this profound and frankly quite disturbing exploration of human nature.
Disturbing is a good word for it.
Yeah, and the consequences of, well, absolute self-indulgence.
Right. So our mission today really is to unpack these intricate, often quite unsettling relationships and the, well, shocking philosophies presented through the main characters.
The key players.
Exactly. We've got Basil Hallward, the artist, very earnest, sort of morally grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Lord Henry Wotton, the cynical, really captivating influencer figure.
Captivating is the word, dangerously so.
Definitely. And caught between them, Dorian Gray, the impressionable young man, just tragically caught in the cross currents of their, completely opposing worldviews.
Yeah.
So we'll try and extract the most surprising facts, those crucial nuggets of insight, help you understand what's truly at play in this rich, but yeah, deeply unsettling tapestry of ideas.
And what it all means for us, right? Reading it now, nearly a century and a half later.
Exactly. So let's start peeling back those layers. Okay, so Wilde, right from that opening sentence, he doesn't just set a scene, does he? He sort of envelops you.
He really does. It's sensory overload, almost.
Yeah. We start in Basil Hallward's art studio, and it's practically overflowing with these sensory details. It's almost like hedonistic excess.
It is.
You step into this room, and Wilde writes, "The studio was filled with the rich odor of roses."
The rich odor.
And when the light summer winds stirred amidst the trees of the garden, there came through the open door the heavy scent of the lilac, or the more delicate perfume of the pink flowering thorn.
It's so specific, not just flowers, but the heavy scent, the delicate perfume. You can almost smell it, can't you?
You really can. The air feels thick with it. And then there's Lord Henry Wotton, just lounging there.
Effortlessly part of the scene.
Totally. Smoking innumerable cigarettes, as Wilde puts it.
Of course.
And he's sort of lazily catching the gleam of the honey-sweet and honey-colored blossoms of a laburnum.
Honey-sweet and honey-colored. That repetition, it's almost cloying.
It is. The whole atmosphere feels weighted, pulling you into this luxurious, maybe even overwhelming world, like a gilded cage of beauty almost.
That's a great way to put it. It's an absolute masterclass in atmospheric writing, isn't it? He's not just describing a room.
No, not at all.
He's crafting this whole sensory experience that subtly, sets the mood for the philosophical debates that are about to kick off.
Yeah.
He uses the laburnum blossoms, describing them as being so flame-like in their beauty that their branches seem to tremulously bear the burden of a fresh flame. But it's not just sight and smell, is it? He weaves in sound, too.
Yes, the bees.
Exactly. The sullen murmur of the bees shouldering their way through the long, unmown grass. It's such a vivid image.
Or circling with monotonous insistence round the dusty gilt horns of the straggling woodbine.
And that sound, paradoxically, makes the stillness more oppressive. It's genius.
It really is.
And then contrasting with that garden quiet, there's the background noise.
The city.
Yeah, the dim roar of London, like the bourdon note of a distant organ. It's always there, humming underneath. So this layering sight, smell, sound, it creates this atmosphere of opulent beauty. But it's almost suffocating, isn't it? It hints at this underlying unease.
Definitely, like something isn't quite right beneath the surface.
Exactly. A world where superficial beauty seems to reign supreme, but underneath there's this, well, oppressive stillness. It's not just a backdrop. It feels like a character itself.
Warning you, maybe?
Perhaps. Subtly warning you that while it's beautiful, this world might also be a trap. It's an invitation into this specific aesthetic realm where sensation often trumps substance.
And it's in this very studio, this intoxicating place. that we first meet Basil Hallward and his deep, almost spiritual connection to his art.
His masterpiece.
Yes, the Portrait of Dorian Gray. He's just finished it, considers it his best work, but he's so strangely, almost stubbornly reluctant to show it.
He tells Lord Henry, quite earnestly,
I really can't exhibit it. I've put too much of myself into it.
too much of myself. That's the key phrase, isn't it?
It really is. He seems genuinely afraid that the painting reveals too much of his idolatry, as he calls it.
His secret adoration for Dorian.
Exactly. He feels he's told too much, gone too deep into his own soul, exposed something intensely private.
And this initial act, this hiding of himself, it's incredibly telling about Basil, about his whole philosophy of art, maybe.
Is it just fear? Vulnerability? Or something else?
Well, it could be fear, certainly, but maybe it's also a kind of artistic integrity for him. His words suggest this profound belief that his art isn't just a picture.
It's part of him.
An extension of his soul, yes.
Yeah.
That this portrait isn't just a likeness, it's like a spiritual imprint of his deepest feelings.
So exhibiting it would be like bearing his soul to the world.
Exactly. Exposing emotions, maybe even an adoration that society back then would have instantly condemned. Which raises that big question for us, doesn't it?
Can art exist independently of the artist's soul?
Basil seems to think, in this case at least, maybe it can't, or shouldn't. It's tied to his essence, to the heart he poured into it.
But then he also says later that art often conceals the artist more than it reveals.
Ah, yes. That fascinating contradiction.
Right. If he poured his soul in, but the art hides him.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
It's a central tension for Basil, isn't it? This push and pull between revelation and concealment in his work.
And that tension brings us right to a foundational provocation in the text, something that really sets the stage.
Wilde's epigram.
Exactly. He starts the whole thing not with story, but with this stark statement. All art is quite useless.
Bam! Just throws it out there.
And then Lord Henry, hearing Basil agonize about putting too much of yourself into it, what does he do?
He doesn't sympathize.
Yeah.
Not at all.
He stretched himself out on the divan and laughed.
Mm-hmm.
Finds Basil's sincerity almost ridiculous.
Quaint, yeah. And that's where the first big philosophical clash happens. It's a direct challenge to the idea of art having any purpose.
Right. Lord Henry just dismisses it.
With that typical cynical elegance, he says, beauty, real beauty, ends where an intellectual expression begins.
Ouch.
He argues intellect is a mode of exaggeration, destroys harmony. He even says he prefers a brainless, beautiful creature over learned men because they're usually hideous.
Except in the church, he jokes.
Right, because in the church they don't think. He gives that example of the bishop who just repeats things and looks absolutely delightful at 80.
Huh. It's witty, but the point is sharp.
Very sharp. The core challenge here from Wilde via Lord Henry is, does true beauty have to be superficial?
And for Henry, the answer seems to be yes.
Absolutely. Thought, purpose, morality, they're just distractions from pure aesthetic wonder. This pulls us straight into aestheticism.
Art for art's sake.
Exactly. Prioritizing beauty, sensation, the experience itself, and deliberately cutting it off from any moral or social duty. For Henry, if it makes you think, it's already less beautiful.
Which forces you, the reader, to wonder. Does deeper meaning really detract from pure beauty?
That's the question he plants right at the start.
Lord Henry's charm, though, it's undeniable, isn't it? But the danger is right there alongside it.
It's a potent mix.
He drops these cynical little bombs, so wittily phrased, you almost miss how corrosive they are.
Like his take on marriage.
Oh, yeah. The one charm of marriage is that it makes a life of deception absolutely necessary for both parties.
Delivered with such flair. You chuckle and then you think, wait, what?
A relationship based on lies. Charming. But this cynicism, this sort of sophisticated nihilism, it goes way deeper. It's his core philosophy that's truly startling.
It really is. He argues, almost casually, there is no such thing as a good influence. All influence is immoral from the scientific point of view.
Immoral from a scientific point of view. That's such a strange justification.
It is, especially in that Victorian era, right? With all its emphasis on moral guidance.
Totally.
But he explains why, and this is where it gets really unsettling. He says, because to influence a person is to give him one's own soul.
Give him one's soul.
He does not think his natural thoughts or run with his natural passions. He becomes an echo of someone else's music, an actor of a part that has not been written for him.
Wow. That completely flips the script on things like mentorship or guidance or even parenting.
Absolutely. Things we usually see as positive, nurturing. Henry suggests any external influence, no matter how well-meaning,
Is basically a violation.
a violation of individual authenticity, a theft almost, stealing your natural thoughts and passions, replacing them with borrowed ones.
It's a chilling argument for just absolute, maybe dangerous autonomy.
Adulterated autonomy, yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of the cost.
And this idea, throwing off all influence, it leads straight to his call for how we should live, right?
Yes, his call to action. He preaches that the aim of life is self-development. To realize one's nature perfectly, that is what each of us is here for.
Which on the surface sounds kind of noble. Liberating even.
It does, doesn't it? Like, unlock your potential, be yourself, until you get to the shocking implication right after.
Yes.
He declares, with this terrifying logic, the only way to get rid of a temptation is to yield to it, resist it, and your soul grows sick with longing.
Yield to temptation. A complete U-turn from conventional morality.
Complete inversion. Conventional morality is all about self-control, restraint. Henry advocates pure hedonism.
Pleasure as the ultimate goal.
Exactly. Pleasure is the highest good, the proper aim of life. He encourages living fully and completely, giving form to every feeling, expression to every thought, reality to every dream.
Giving reality to every dream.
And he even illustrates it with that provocative idea about sin.
Oh, the purification idea.
Right. The body sins once and has done with its sin, for action is a mode of purification. Nothing remains then but the recollection of a pleasure or the luxury of a regret.
So acting on an impulse, even a bad one, somehow cleanses you.
That's his chilling twist. It purges the impulse, leaving just a memory, maybe a bit of regret, but no lasting moral stain. Vice becomes therapy. Sin becomes self-actualization.
The potential consequences if you actually lived like that are terrifying.
Absolutely. It reframes everything. Transgression isn't corrupting, it's cleansing. Unexpressed desires are apparently more damaging than acted upon ones. It validates any indulgence.
No matter how dark.
Precisely.
And his views aren't just abstract, are they? They affect how he sees people, relationships, even truth itself.
Oh, definitely. He has those peculiar criteria for relationships.
Yes. I choose my friends for their good looks, my acquaintances for their good characters, and my enemies for their good intellects.
It's so transactional. Looks for amusement, character for reliability, intellect for sparring. No mention of, actual connection.
Or shared values, yeah.
And this casual dismissal of morality continues when he talks about sincerity and truth. He just keeps dismantling norms.
What does he say about that?
He asserts that the value of an idea has nothing whatsoever to do with the sincerity of the man who expresses it. He goes further. Indeed, the probabilities are that the more insincere the man is, the more purely intellectual will the idea be, as in that case it will not be colored by either his wants, his desires, or his prejudices.
That's profoundly unsettling. So detached, cold intellectualism is somehow pure?
Purer, more objective, apparently, than thought colored by genuine belief or emotion. Emotional honesty is a hindrance to clear thinking, in his view.
Wow.
And this connects right to his observation about the English character.
What's that?
He says the English never ask if an idea is right or wrong, only whether one believes it oneself.
So subjective belief trumps objective truth.
Exactly. It implies the society where personal conviction matters more than any external standard of rightness or morality. It's all about appearance, wit, personal comfort, not ethics.
A society ripe for moral relativism.
Absolutely. And these abstract, maybe entertaining, but deeply corrosive ideas are about to crash with terrifying force into a very real, very young man.
Dorian Gray. So when Dorian Gray first meets Lord Henry, he's described as quite shy, isn't he? There's a faint blush on his cheek.
A touch of innocence, yeah.
But it vanishes so quickly. It turns into this deep, almost primal fascination. Wilde writes, he could not help liking the tall, graceful young man.
He felt afraid of him and ashamed of being afraid.
It's that immediate pull, isn't it? Like being drawn to something both amazing and dangerous.
A moth to a flame, exactly. And it's Lord Henry's words, his intoxicating worldview, that really start to unlock something darker in Dorian.
Something avaricious, maybe.
Yeah, especially Lord Henry's terrible warning about how brief youth and beauty are. That hits Dorian hard.
Right at his core.
Henry tells him with this chilling precision, youth is the one thing worth having. He just elevates beauty above everything else.
Higher than genius, even.
Higher than genius, as it needs no explanation. He calls it one of the great facts of the world, like sunlight or springtime.
Or the reflection in dark waters of that silver shell we call the moon. It cannot be questioned. It has its divine right of sovereignty.
It's poetic, but terrifying. For Henry, beauty is the wonder of wonders, and it is only shallow people who do not judge by appearances. The true mystery of the world is the visible, not the invisible.
The true mystery is the visible.
Wow. But the hidden terror in that idea is stark, isn't it?
Mhm.
If beauty is the ultimate value, the highest genius.
What happens when it fades?
Uh,
Which it inevitably does.
exactly. It implies this terrifying obsolescence, a complete loss of everything that matters once you're not young and beautiful anymore.
That sets such a dangerous precedent for Dorian. It creates this dread.
This existential dread, yeah. That will define everything for him and push him towards that desperate solution. It basically tells him his worth is only skin deep and temporary.
And it's this fear, this gnawing fear of decay, made so much worse by Henry's words, that leads to the story's supernatural twists, doesn't it?
Precisely. He's standing there looking at Basil's amazing portrait.
Which captures his innocent beauty perfectly.
And the sense of his own beauty came on him like a revelation. Suddenly, he's aware of his own perfection.
But immediately, right after that revelation,
There's that sharp pang of pain, the thought of it all fading, the cruelty of time.
and that fear, that dread of losing the one thing Henry convinced him is worth having.
Culminates in that pivotal, desperate, and ultimately damning wish.
The wish.
Overwhelmed by it all, he blurts out that desire that he himself might remain young and the portrait grow old, that his own beauty might be untarnished, and the face on the canvas bear the burden of his passions and his sins.
Yeah, that's the moment, isn't it? The deal is struck, essentially.
It is. Born directly from fear and Lord Henry's influence, it sets the stage for the whole supernatural element. It's a classic Faustian bargain.
Trading his soul, or its reflection, for eternal youth.
Exactly. Trading the inner reality for the outward appearance, it just lays bare the intense narcissism that's been awakened in him.
This is where aestheticism and hedonism become terrifyingly real. They twist the art into this dark mirror.
And the first sign that the bargain has been accepted, that his soul is sold, comes chillingly fast.
Right after the wish.
He declares with this cold resolve, "When I find that I am growing old, I shall kill myself."
It's shocking, such despair, but also such self-absorption.
And Basil's reaction to this is immediate, visceral, full of genuine alarm.
He turned pale and caught his hand, pleading, "Dorian, Dorian, don't talk like that."
That anguish from Basil,
Yeah.
it's the first clear sign of the corrupting path Dorian's on. And it highlights the clash between Basil's unselfish, almost fatherly love.
And Lord Henry's detached interest.
Exactly. Basil sees the beauty, sure, but he cherishes Dorian's innocence, his beautiful nature. His horror just underscores that contrast with Henry, who's watching this like a fascinating experiment.
Basil is the moral compass, trying to pull him back.
Desperately trying to pull him back from the brink while Henry just observes, maybe even delighted by the drama. Basil's attempt to save him comes from genuine love and morality.
Which sets him completely apart from Henry's calculated fascination. Dorian's first big adventure after meeting Lord Henry is this infatuation with Sybil Vane, the actress. And the way he describes it shows just how deep Henry's influence goes, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's all framed in terms of sensation.
He tells Henry, "You fill me with a wild desire to know everything about life."
For days after I met you, something seemed to throb in my veins. There was an exquisite poison in the air. I had a passion for sensations.
He's not just falling in love, he's chasing a sensation.
Mm.
And he worships Sybil's genius on stage.
She is all the great heroines of the world in one. She is more than an individual.
He loves the performance, the illusion, the idea of her as Juliet or Rosalind, not the actual girl.
It's a love for artifice, which is in such stark contrast to Sybil's devotion to him, which is tragically real.
She calls him Prince Charming, her god of graces. She's completely lost in it.
Totally abandoned herself to the idea of him, while her mother, of course,
It was much more practical.
very worldly, focuses on his money, sees him as a good match, a solution to their poverty.
Such different perspectives. Dorian loves an ideal, an illusion. Sybil loves him as a real person. Her mother sees a bank account.
Right, and Dorian's passion for sensations drives him, but idealizing her as an artist, as a performer of emotions, reveals that shift in him. He values the performance over the person,
The abstract beauty over the living soul.
which just sets the stage for a massive disillusionment when reality inevitably hits. He tells Henry he worshipped her.
But he worshipped the role, not the girl.
Exactly. The emotions she evoked, not her true, vulnerable self.
And that disillusionment crashes down hard, doesn't it, during that performance?
The pivotal performance. where her acting suddenly becomes unbearable, absurdly artificial.
The audience hates it. Basil is horrified. Dorian is just consumed by rage.
The curtain falls on the play and on the romance.
And Sybil's explanation afterwards is just heartbreaking. It shows the impact Dorian had on her.
It really does. She tells him so clearly, "Before I knew you, acting was the one reality of my life. You came and you freed my soul from prison. You taught me what reality really is."
She realizes the stage is just hollowness, the sham, the silliness.
Because she's experienced real love, real emotion with him. Her core argument is devastatingly simple. You are more to me than all art can ever be.
Wow. For her, real love killed her art.
It made the imitation, the performance, impossible. Once she felt true, raw emotion, she couldn't pretend anymore. The artifice became unbearable, hollow.
Which forces you to ask, can real love exist alongside that kind of performance? Or does one kill the other?
For Sybil, it seems real love destroyed her ability to perform. Her art died when her love was born, a profound tragedy.
And Dorian's reaction to her heartfelt explanation, her failure, it's horrifyingly cold.
No comfort, no understanding, just blame.
He snaps at her. Horribly, it was dreadful. Are you ill? You have no idea what it was. You have no idea what I suffered.
He suffered. It's incredible.
And he just dismisses her tears, her pleas, her love with this bitter cruelty. Total emotional detachment.
His analysis of her emotions is chilling. He thinks, there is always something ridiculous about the emotions of people whom one has ceased to love.
Ridiculous.
Sybil Vane seemed to him to be absurdly melodramatic. Her tears and sobs annoyed him.
Annoyed him. It shows the immediate, devastating impact of Henry's philosophy, doesn't it? His compassion is just gone.
It's not just disappointment. It's this profound, almost sociopathic lack of feeling. A total rejection of anything that doesn't give him the sensations he wants.
Is it just self-interest? Yeah. Or is he defending himself against losing his ideal?
The text suggests it's a direct result of that hedonistic view. If it's not beautiful, not pleasurable, it's worthless. Ugly, even.
Like Lord Henry said, become a spectator of his own life.
Exactly. And Sybil's genuine pain is just a bad performance he finds boring and ugly.
And the consequences hit almost immediately when he gets home.
He walks past the portrait.
And it's changed. A touch of cruelty in the mouth.
Yeah.
Subtle, but undeniable.
And he knows instantly. He connects it to that mad wish the bargain is real.
His first reaction is a flicker of remorse, isn't it? A half-hearted resolution.
Yeah, for a moment he thinks, go back to Sybil Vane, make her amends, marry her, try to love her again. He even thinks the picture could be a visible emblem of conscience.
A reminder to keep him on the right path.
But that lasts about 5 seconds, because Lord Henry arrives with the news of her death.
Her suicide. And Henry's reaction
is pure manipulation. He reframes it completely, dismisses her death with that chilling detachment. The girl never really lived, and so she has never really died.
Never really lived.
For you, at least, she was always a dream. The moment she touched actual life, she marred it, and it marred her, and so she passed away.
He just trivializes her whole existence, reduces her to a character in a play.
An aesthetic concept, not a human being. And this insidious rhetoric lets Dorian just shift his perception of responsibility.
Suddenly the tragedy is just an aesthetic inconvenience.
And he's absolved in his own mind because she was never real enough to truly live or die. Chilling moral gymnastics.
Further cementing his fall into self-deception. So now the portrait has that first visible stain. His cruelty made manifest. And Dorian's reaction is immediate panic, right?
Concealment?
Instantly. He has it moved up to the old schoolroom.
A place full of dust, not fit for you to see. And then he covers it with that great purple and gold texture.
Shrouding it. It's not just hiding it, it's deeply symbolic. A conscious decision to wall off his conscience.
Keep it away from the light.
But that locked room becomes this terrifying symbol of his accelerating corruption and his denial. It's an attempt to lock away his conscience, hide the evidence from the world and himself.
But Wilde makes it clear it's pointless, doesn't he?
Utterly futile. The portrait keeps changing, getting worse, growing bestial, sodden, and unclean.
His own soul, looking out of him from the canvas and calling him to judgment.
Exactly. The text says, for every sin that he committed, a stain would fleck and wreck its fairness. So the room isn't really about physical hiding. It's psychological denial.
A desperate, doomed denial. The portrait is this constant, inescapable reminder of the real degradation of his life. A mirror he has to confront sometimes, even as he hides it.
The self-inflicted torment.
A psychological prison of his own making, yeah. A wound he keeps trying to ignore.
But even with the portrait locked away, the whispers start in London society. You can't hide everything.
No, secrets have a way of leaking out. And Basil Hallward, his old friend, his creator, gets increasingly worried.
Agonizingly concerned. He hears dreadful things about Dorian, rumors that his friendship is so fatal to young men.
And Basil has examples, doesn't he? It's not just vague gossip.
No, specific cases. That wretched boy in the Guards who committed suicide, Sir Henry Ashton who had to leave England with a tarnished name.
Adrian Singleton's dreadful end, Lord Kent's son, ruined.
It's a clear, disturbing pattern.
And Basil's concern comes from his unwavering, almost naive belief in that old moral order.
That sin is the thing that writes itself across a man's face. It cannot be concealed.
Right, and that old-fashioned idea clashes completely bafflingly with Dorian's pristine, youthful face, which stays innocent despite the horrible rumors.
Basil just can't reconcile it.
He can't. He says, before I could answer that, I should have to see your soul. He needs proof.
What's at stake for Basil here? Is it just Dorian's reputation?
Oh, it's much more than that. It's Dorian's soul, certainly, but maybe also the sanctity of his own art. The art he poured into Dorian's image, believing it captured true beauty.
So his attempts to save Dorian are deeply personal.
Born of love and moral responsibility, yeah. Standing against Henry's detachment and this changing, morally relativistic society, Basil's clinging to a framework the world seems to be abandoning.
Leaving him kind of isolated in his morality.
Very much so.
And this tension, the secrets, the moral gap.
Yeah.
It all leads to that horrific revelation.
Dorian decides to show Basil, in a moment of twisted madness of pride, coldly, calculatingly.
Sharing his secret.
Yeah.
He pulls back the cover.
And Basil's reaction, absolute visceral horror, the scream.
He sees the hideous face on the canvas grinning at him. A monster! And cries out,
"It is the face of my soul," and then with such despair, "Christ, what a thing I must have worshipped. It has the eyes of a devil."
The artist confronts the monstrous truth of his muse's soul, reflected in his own art.
And even then, Basil makes one last desperate plea for repentance, clinging to hope.
"It is never too late, Dorian. Let us kneel down and try if we cannot remember a prayer." He quotes the Bible, "Though your sins be as scarlet."
Yet I will make them as white as snow, but it's too late. In that critical moment, Dorian feels
Not remorse, hatred.
an uncontrollable hatred for Basil Hallward, a feeling the text says seems suggested to him by the image on the canvas, whispered into his ear by those grinning lips.
So maybe not just his own anger, something else.
Possibly a deeper, maybe supernatural malice from the portrait itself driving him to murder.
The murder's so brutal, swift.
He digs the knife into the great vein that is behind the ear, crushing the man's head down on the table and stabbing again and again.
And his calm afterwards, just terrifying. Steps out on the balcony, washes his hands.
It suggests the horrifying extent of his dehumanization. The murder isn't passion, it's cold, rational, eliminating the witness.
The last link to his innocent self. The only one who knew and still tried to save him.
A calculated final severing.
After the murder, no panic, no remorse from Dorian. Just ruthless efficiency, the cover-up.
Cold, calculated self-preservation. His plan to get rid of Basil's body involves blackmailing Alan Campbell.
A former friend, and crucially a chemist. Dorian is utterly chilling in his approach, just focused on erasing the evidence.
And that confrontation with Alan Campbell is so revealing, isn't it? Campbell's initial refusal.
"I had intended never to enter your house again, Gray."
It shows how far Dorian has fallen socially, how much he's alienated people, but Dorian just forces him.
Through blackmail, threatening to expose some past secret of Campbell's.
Something ruinous. Campbell's trapped, terrified. He has no choice but to agree to destroy the thing that is upstairs.
To destroy it so that not a vestige of it will be left. Using his scientific knowledge to dissolve the body.
It's grim. And it raises that disturbing question, doesn't it? How far does one person's corruption spread?
And what does it say about the society? The fragility of reputation? The power of secrets? Coercion?
Exactly. Dorian's influence isn't just intellectual anymore. It's tangible, destructive, forcing others into complicity, revealing the dark underside of a world obsessed with appearances where secrets hold immense power.
A grim look at the cost of keeping up appearances.
Very grim.
So after disposing of Basil and effectively destroying Alan Campbell too, Dorian doesn't retreat. He plunges deeper into aesthetics.
Almost frantically, as an escape.
Obsessively studying perfumes, the secrets of their manufacture, music, collecting jewels. It's more than a hobby.
It's ritualistic, yeah. The depth of his obsession with rare, exotic objects is astonishing. It shows his desperate search for forgetfulness, for oblivion.
He collects treasures from everywhere. The mysterious juriparis of the Rio Negro Indians, flutes of human bones.
Gold-embroidered caryatides 15 feet high. Those Dhaka gauzes, known as woven air. He tries to create a psychology of perfumes.
Wondering what makes frankincense mystical or ambergris stir passions.
It's all described as means of forgetfulness, modes by which he could escape from the fear that seemed almost too great to be borne.
So the luxury is directly linked to the moral decay.
Explicitly. These aren't just pleasures. They're attempts to numb the conscience that the portrait keeps reminding him of.
It's hedonism as self-medication.
Taken to its destructive extreme. Trying to drown his conscience in sensation, hoping that if the outside world is perfect, the inside will magically fix itself.
But you can't really bury the past, can you? Consequences always surface.
Like ghosts, yeah. Whispers start about his extraordinary absences, his slinking in disguise into the foulest dens in London.
And then that shocking encounter in the opium den.
With James Vane, Sybil's brother, still hunting Prince Charming after 18 years, seeking revenge.
In Dorian's youth, the thing he bargained for ironically saves him at first.
The irony is so cruel. James Vane, who's aged 18 years, thinks Dorian must be much older. He's momentarily disarmed by this impossibly young face.
Until that woman reveals the truth.
Why, man, it's nigh on 18 years since Prince Charming made me what I am. Chilling. James realizes the horrifying reality.
It just highlights how inescapable the past is, doesn't it? Even if he looks unchanged.
Exactly. The world might forget names, but the pain inflicted lingers. It resurfaces. You can hide the portrait, but you can't erase the ripples of your actions.
The past is never really dead.
It's just waiting.
And despite all this freedom, wealth, eternal youth, Dorian feels this profound weariness, doesn't he?
This creeping ennui. He eventually sighs, life is a great disappointment.
Such a contrast to the vibrant life Lord Henry promised him.
It's the tragic consequence of that philosophy. Avoid suffering, embrace only sensation. His dismissal of Basil's disappearance is so telling.
If Basil chooses to hide himself, it is no business of mine. If he is dead, I don't want to think about him. Death is the only thing that ever terrifies me. I hate it.
And he adds, I can sympathize with everything except suffering. It is too ugly, too horrible, too distressing.
He can't feel anymore. Not really.
His relentless pursuit of pleasure, his avoidance of pain, led him to a state where he can't genuinely engage with life beyond superficial sensation, which raises that terrifying question.
Is this the real tragedy of old age? Not being physically old?
But being eternally young in body, yet having lost all real emotion, all passion, all connection. He got his wish, but at the cost of an eternally empty, disillusioned soul.
A terrifying emptiness. Even pleasure has become boring.
A void created by living only for himself.
But even in that weariness, that ennui, there's a moment, maybe his last flicker, where he feels the living death of his own soul troubling him.
More than the actual deaths he caused.
Yes, and he makes that fleeting attempt at a good deed, sparing the village girl, Hetty Merton, hoping it might change the portrait.
That faint hope for redemption. But it raises that unsettling question again. Is real goodness even possible for him now, after embracing hedonism so completely?
He rationalizes it away almost immediately, doesn't he?
Instantly.
Yes.
He calls it vanity, hypocrisy, just curiosity. He admits with chilling self-awareness, no, there had been nothing more. For curiosity's sake, he had tried the denial of self.
So even a good deed is just another sensation, another experiment.
Devoid of genuine moral intent, it shows how deep the corruption goes. His capacity for goodness is eroded. Even his conscience gets reinterpreted through Henry's cynical lens.
It makes you wonder about Lord Henry's definition of modern morality, just accepting the standard of one's age, especially when the standard is this.
Exactly.
So driven by this final corrupted hope, he goes back to the locked room, expecting, maybe demanding, to see improvement in the portrait.
A sign of redemption. But instead,
it's worse, more loathsome if possible than before, and the scarlet dew that spotted the hand seemed brighter and more like blood newly spilled.
And now there's a look of cunning, and in the mouth a curved wrinkle of the hypocrite. His good deed only added hypocrisy to the image.
The mirror shows only deeper monstrosity, and in a final, desperate act to destroy that mirror, that witness,
he grabs the knife, the same knife that killed Basil. He decides to kill the painter's work and all that meant. It would kill the past, and when that was dead, he would be free.
Kill the past, kill the evidence.
But the aftermath, That's Wilde's ultimate, visceral statement, the climax of the moral fable.
The servants hear that horrible scream.
They break into the room and find chaos, transformation.
A splendid portrait of their master as they had last seen him, in all the wonder of his exquisite youth and beauty.
Pristine, restored to its original glory, but on the floor.
Lying on the floor was a dead man, in evening dress, with a knife in his heart. He was withered, wrinkled, and loathsome of visage.
Unrecognizable. It was not till they had examined the rings that they recognized who it was.
Dorian Gray, horribly aged, decayed, bearing the full weight of his sins.
It's the horrifying twist confirming the pact. The portrait is restored, but Dorian's body takes on all the corruption instantaneously.
So, does art conceal the artist? Or reveal him?
In this case, it brutally reveals him. Wilde suggests art, imbued with this pact, holds the ultimate judgment, trying to separate appearance from reality, living for hedonism behind a beautiful mask.
Leads to catastrophic self-destruction.
The portrait, first a symbol of adoration, becomes an instrument of retribution. An unyielding reflection of the soul's true state, it tells the story Dorian tried desperately to hide.
So, we've journeyed through this world where beauty was God, influence was a weapon, and the soul became this hidden, rotting canvas.
A terrifying journey.
This deep dive into Whispers of the Heart really shows, with startling clarity, the devastating consequences of trying to cheat the natural order.
Yeah.
Of believing you can just live for yourself without paying an awful price.
What stands out most vividly to you, listening to all this? Is it just a fantastical story, a gothic horror?
Yeah.
Or does it hold an uncomfortable mirror up to our own time? Our own desires for eternal youth, effortless pleasure, maybe consequence-free living, in an age still obsessed with appearances.
If our souls were visibly affected by our actions, by every choice, every indulgence, what would our world actually look like?
Would we live differently? Would you?
Oscar Wilde, with his famous wit, proclaimed, "All art is quite useless."
That paradox again.
But in the end, here it was a work of art, that painting that held the ultimate unbending truth for Dorian Gray. And it exacted the final terrible cost.
A heavy price.
It reminds us maybe that the most dangerous mirror isn't the one on the wall, but the one we hold up to our own desires, to those unexamined impulses inside.
What secret, unpictured sins might be stirring within you, and what grotesque form might they take if given absolute permission to bloom?